So, I'm not sure how far you've been there. So you're there when I'm explaining a duplicate accounts. Hello, you're back.
Yeah, you were talking about merge.
Okay. So when you have identified finally um, two account records are a duplicate, and we have to what we have to do at the end, we have to keep only one account and remove the other account. You have to consider one account as a master that you want to keep, and the others are duplicates which you want to sorry, duplicate. So what will happen in reality when you're having a duplicate records and meanwhile you identify there might be some work they might have done. So what actually they do a work, they might have added some contacts and they have created some opportunities, and there are some cases, attachments, and all they do on the accounts. On two accounts, you having the both activities or like a child records you are having. So in merge, what actually it does was which account you are marking as a master, it will keep that record, and other what you mention them as a duplicate, those records will get deleted, and if there are any related records that are having in your duplicate records that you have mentioned, all these records will be transferred to the master account. Okay, so far clear what actually merge does. Merge will keep the master records what you have mentioned and delete the duplicate records. And before deleting, what it does was if there are any related records to the record that you mentioned as a duplicate, all the child records will be transferred to the master. So let's say Jenny point have a one contact and Jenny space point have a two contacts, and you're mentioning this account as a master and the Jenny space point as a duplicate. Then after merge, what will happen was first of all, it will transfer the two contacts to this account. So that what happens, this account will have a 1 plus 2 total, three a child, three contacts have in this account, and after transferring it will delete the Jenny space point. That what actually a merge happens. Okay. So far I guess that was clear. And how we do a merge. So here let's say I have a accounts, I have a account A1, I would say A master, and a duplicate one, a duplicate two. So I have total three accounts. One is a master and two are the duplicates. So whatever there in the childs of duplicate one, I want to transfer to a master. Whatever the childs of duplicate two, I want to transfer to a master, and I want to delete these two records. Then how I do was um, database dot merge. I have to mention first parameter would be a master account, then followed by a, if it's a single, then you can give a single, or if you're having a like more than one and max you can give two only, then you can, what you can do was new account comma two. So maximum you can add a two duplicate records. So when you do this perform, it will uh, do a match. Okay, so we cannot do on a multiple, we cannot do on a multiple record. You can do only for a only we can mention the one master and maximum two duplicates. And for each merge will be considered as a one DML operation. So here in the top also we have this all DMLs, right? Insert, update, upsert, delete. So each statement will be considered as a one DML action, and how many number of rows we have, that will be considered as a DML rows. Okay. Now here, if you have 100 accounts also, that will be considered as a one DML action and 100 DML rows. And here in the merge, the max you can do with three records. Where it is here, right? Max you can do with three records. It's going to delete two records and keep a one record, but the operation will be one DML operation. Now, talking about the governor limits of DMLs. So the governor limits. So governor limits for a DML operation was 150 DMLs we can do. DML operations can be performed in transaction. Okay. And how many rows we can do? We can do a 10,000 DML rows can be performed in transaction. Okay, so these are the governor limits for the DML operation. All this merge and convert also we can considered as a DML operation only. Okay, any questions so far? I will jump on to the convert one. So if you remember or not, we have a standard object called a lead, and before that this match will work only on a account lead, and there's one more object I forgot. Where's dot match? It only supports some three records of same object type. Only lead, contact, case, and accounts can be merged. So only four types that can be used in this merge functionality. Okay, that will be a main thing that we have to consider while doing a database.merge. It will not support an all S object. It will only support it only on this four S object types: lead, contact, case, and accounts can be merged using this. And convert. While doing convert also, it can be supported only on a lead object. Supported only on a lead object records. Why? Because we have only the convert feature only on a lead. So on lead, when you open a lead, you have option to convert the lead. I think I have explained you before what actually convert means. We have a standard lead conversion. Usually when we're doing marketing, we capture the leads. And when we have a lead, it is the combination of a company information, personal information, and what kind of products they are looking for. It's having a combination of three: account, contact, and opportunity. Account means what is the company related information. Contact means who are the contact person that we got in that company, that information. Opportunities, what they are looking for, a product or a service. So we split all this three information into a three different records called account, contact, and opportunity. So we do this using the standard navigation lead conversion wizard. What we call this one was without using that wizard also, we can perform the same operation from the Apex that is called a database dot convert. So what are all we are mentioning here? Like either creating by default, what it will do by default, how it is populated in similar way, it will automatically adjust everything. If you just do a database dot convert, and if you give any lead L1, if I give, then if I give data base dot convert, and I gave a L1 here, it will be behave exactly same if I open this and do a convert by default. So it will be copy the name from the lead one field and then the default record type, and the contact name will be picked from a lead name, and opportunity name will be exactly same as account name only. It will populate, and the default status and the owner, everything will be set as a default and do a convert. And if you have a option to choose a existing account, right? So here you can search on the account and you can mention, okay, not this, in order to create a new account, I already know this is what the account, and don't create any account and use that account, but create a new contact and opportunity. Then there we have an option to provide the account ID or contact ID or opportunity ID so that it will not create those. So lead convert class. So you have a different method, and here in video convert, obviously convert the thing. Sorry. So we have so many methods over here. After conversion, if you want to get the account ID, we can get. If you want to so it will create account, contact, and opportunity, right? So we can get all this. So what after conversion, they getting the values from it, and if have like if you have a conversion by default will be true, like creation, and if you want to avoid, you have to pass the parameter as a false, indicating whether opportunity is created during lead conversion or not. False by default. By default it will create an opportunity. Do not create opportunity, that means do not create. The default value is a false, that means it will create the opportunity. So here, before you are doing conversion, you have to do like this: set account ID, set contact ID if you already having, set convert status, so which status you want to mark the lead, and set do not create opportunity. If you don't want to create the opportunity, then make it as a true value. Set the lead ID, so what actually the lead you want to convert here, or directly you can pass the lead ID also, it's not mandatory. If you want to assign the existing opportunity ID, so you don't want to create, just use the existing opportunity, then you have to set the ID of opportunity. If you want to change the name of the opportunity after before like creating, you can give the name here, the opportunity name, so with the same name it will create. So we have same so many features, whether you want to create or use the existing. You can use all this method. So before conversion, you have to use the set methods, and after conversion, you want to read the values what they are created, then you can use the this get methods. So the context will be lead convert and convert status. This is how we're going to have a conversion link. It's not a convert actually, it is a lead convert. Okay, just trying to explain here. They're creating a one lead here, and then they're creating a class instance called lead convert, and from there they will assign the set lead ID. So here, whatever the ID that we are going to convert, that lead ID we have to set for the lead, and then what status that we are going to give after conversion. So we have object called a lead status, and where is converted is equal to true. In this, we will be having a allowed status that you can give after conversion. If you don't mention this filter and try to assign a different status, it will be a failed. So you have to consider status which are in the category of converted equal to true. So in lead status, we're having multiple status over here, but we don't see all of them here. We have only one value, but we can add more status for the converted. So if you have more, then you will get a more values over there. If you go to the details, we have to query only the converted true equal lead status, and we can assign this one, and then lead convert results. So obviously this result will have all these methods like get account ID, get opportunity. Okay, you guys are there, or we lost? Hello?
Yeah, we are in.
Yeah, okay. Okay, and
Yes, Bala. We are in.
okay then. So that's how a lead conversion will be done using a database dot lead convert method. Okay, so far we are good. And apart from that, I want to, so this atomic or non-atomic means that's what the flag that we are passing for this one. This is called a atomic or non-atomic flag. If it is a true means that is atomic. So atomic means what? It's kind of a chain reaction, right? So if trigger one, everything will be gone. So if you make it true, it will be same exactly same as normal DML operation. So if one fails, everything will be fail. If it is a true, it will be non-atomic. So it will not disturb the others. So if it fails, only that record will fail. The other record will be, if it's success, there will be a success. We call this as a all or none or a atomic or non-atomic flags. Okay, so in interviews, like they ask something like fancy saying atomic, explain atomic or non-atomic DMLs. So you have to mention that atomic DML operations are insert, comma, database dot insert with your list, comma, true. This will be considered as a atomic. And if you say non-atomic, you have to mention it like a false. It will be a non-atomic. This is how you have to differentiate between atomic and non-atomic DML operations. Okay. Then now these are something interesting parts. That is setup and non-setup object and mixed DML exceptions. So I was in between. I'm giving so that if I explain all exceptions also, it doesn't make much sense. So in middle, I will try to add some exceptions. So before, so for what exceptions we discussed the attempt to dereference a null object. Exceptions we see when we are trying to use the variables without initializing with the memory, then we will get a null pointer exceptions that we have already discussed, right? So similarly, we have a governor limit exceptions also. That is like when you're trying to query more than 50,000 rows, we will get a 50,001 SOQL rows limit exception. So whenever you hit a governor limit, you will get a limit exception and with the following message, which limit you have exceeded. So that is called a limit exception. If so far what the governor limits that we know for a SOQL queries and DML operation, we can query 50,000 rows per transaction using SOQL queries. Maximum we can use a 100 SOQL queries, and then DML operations, we can perform 10,000 rows with a DML operation and 150 DML operations per transaction. So these are the limits so far we discussed. Okay. Now this is a mixed DML exception. That means what is a mixed? Mixed means that means they're itself the naming is saying they are like two categories of DMLs and you're trying to mix. It's not exactly DML. It's on an object called a setup and non-setup objects. In the same transaction, when we are trying to modify a setup object and a non-setup object, then we will be getting the mixed DML operation. Sorry, mixed DML exception. Exception means in simple terms, in the same transaction, you cannot change the setup object and non-setup object. That means what actually modify or DML actually we're manipulating, right? That means either we're creating or updating or deleting something. We are trying to do a DML operation on a objects. Basically, what are the objects so far we've seen, like a account, contact, lead, or a custom objects like a projects, resources. Like this, we have objects. So in the same transaction, we can manipulate on a multiple objects also, but maximum we can do a 10,000 rows and 150 DML operations you can do. And you can do convert, merge, everything you can do. All these objects are called non-setup objects. So what are the setup objects? Setup objects are which are the metadata. That means which is um, what I can say administrative side. Let's say the examples of a setup object is a user object, profile object, and a page layout. These are all the some of the examples of the setup objects. So let's say you have a user record, you know the logged in user, and you want to modify some data on a user object. Let's say you want to update the salutation of the user, or there are some custom fields you created on the user object, and you want to modify in some scenarios of a code. And if you want, you can update. Obviously, you can update the user object and profile and layout objects also. You can update from a Apex code. But the problem was when you're trying to update on this setup object in the same transaction, if you're trying to update the non-setup objects like normal objects, account, contact, lead, or like any custom object or any standard objects, you're trying to update in the same transaction, that will not be allowed. That's called a mixed DML operation. But if we have a scenarios, in those scenarios, still you want to perform the some DML operation on a setup object followed by a DML operation on non-setup object. How we can do? We have a option called a threading, or not exactly threading. We can separate the transaction in a asynchronous way. We call. So there are some features in Apex which will be run asynchronously. So what does asynchronous and synchronous mean? So first of all, before we stepping onto that, you understand it's a theory, completely theory only. So nothing to do actually here. So I can write a code and show it to you how the exactly the mixed DML. Tomorrow we will dedicated give for a writing code. So for what we have done, like writing some DMLs and the two tasks that I have mentioned here, like 9, 10, and 11. These are all we do explain tomorrow by writing the code. But I want to make you sure that you understand actually what is a mixed DML operation means. When you're trying to update the setup and non-setup objects in the same transaction, then you will get a mixed DML operation. Sorry, mixed DML exception. So how to avoid? We discuss that tomorrow using. Okay, before that, I want to give a background. So far clear. What is a mixed DML exception was?
Yeah.
Okay. Now, so what we can do work around is. So I have some logic on a setup object. I have some logic here, and I have object setup on it. Sorry, I have some logic on a non-setup object. In the same method or the same transaction, um, I want to perform the same. So when I'm trying to do the same, I will get a mixed DML exception. So how I can separate this into a different operation or like a different transaction, how I can split the transaction or divert some part of my code into a like a different transaction, how I can do. So we have a concept called um, synchronous and asynchronous. So far, what are all we seen? All are a synchronous apex. That means whenever you do a operation, immediately all code will be executed without any delay. So before like you see the output, that means all code will be get executed. So in that block, if you having both setup and non-setup, you will get this exception. So my or like what we have to do was we have to execute part of code separately, not at the same time, either with some delay or with not exactly the same, but it has to execute, but not along, sorry, not along with the same transaction, but split the transaction into a separate. So for doing that, what we have a concept called as synchronous and asynchronous. So synchronous is what so far we discussed, normally writing or executing the Apex. Asynchronous Apex is the way that we can execute a block of code separately whenever there are resources available. That means already we have some space, right? Let's say we have 100 users in our org, and there is no guarantee that 100 or like that how many users we having, all of them are using the system or not, right? Sometimes Some of them may not be login or they may not be working, or they not be using a system, using the sales. So that we will be having obviously um, the resources available means it's not system is not busy actually. So whenever it's not busy, these asynchronous code will run. In usual, it will run immediately only without any delay until unless you're having more jobs and more things to execute in the backend, and you have all users are executing and doing serious work. It will be delay, but usually it will be immediate only without much delay. But in theory, we have to mention that whenever the system resources are available, your asynchronous code will executed. Okay, so you can make a piece of code that can be executed asynchronously without making you wait. That means it will execute sometime. It may execute immediately or it may execute in 2 seconds or 5 seconds or after a minute, after hour. It is not a predefined thing, and we cannot mention any figure and say that exactly this time it will execute. It's no guarantee that it will do immediately, but it will happen immediately only. Okay, and basically what it does was it will split your transaction into a different transaction and run the code asynchronously without make you wait. And even though it is not executed also, in front end immediately it will take as it's being queued. So there are multiple ways that we have a piece of code in Apex that can be executed asynchronously. Some examples are future method, queuable, schedulable, and batch classes. These are the asynchronous that we are going to discuss tomorrow or like day after tomorrow after having some examples. Okay, and yeah, that's all for today. If you have any questions, we'll discuss.
Oh, yes. So, Bala, can we talk a little about atomic and non-atomic? I was little confused.
Okay, here, so for what I explained before without saying atomic and non-atomic, and say at the end I gave a naming, that's it. So initially when I have an insert or update, what I said, when you're trying to perform these operations on the list, that means on a multiple records. So here, let's say in upset, you're having a list. Here I have a 2 records, but out of these 2 records, one is having some fail because of validation or required fields are missing. There's some failure in one of the account. So when I do the operation, it could be upset or update or insert or delete. It could be anything on a multiple record. And one is having an issue. What will happen? Everything will fail. If you're trying to insert 100 or 2 records, one is having error, then 2 records will fail. It will not insert any of the accounts. Even though one is having error, nothing will happen. That means atomic. Atomic means even there is a one error, everything will fail. So
Okay.
examples are doing a normal without using database class, using a Dml operation, and using a database class also mentioning that atomic or non-atomic flag as true. If you use, then it will be atomic only. If you mention only the atomic flag as a false, that means it is a non-atomic. So what will happen was, even though there are some errors, only those records will fail. What are the records that are not having any errors, that will be executed success. Those are called
Mm-hmm.
non-atomic operations. Clear?
Yep.
Okay. Any other questions you have? Hello? Any other we have?
I'm good. Thank you.
Okay, then any other we have? Okay, then see you guys tomorrow if you're good.
Have a good day.